And welcome to the show, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Rodger Potocki is our guest. Rodger is the author of Lucky You, Lucky Us, and we're going to be talking about that. You're going to be especially interested in this book if you grew up in the 1950s and 60s, especially if you grew up in Utica, especially if you went to Utica Free Academy, and I did all those things, so I was very interested in the book. Rodger, good to see you.
Nice to see you, Joe.
Thank you.
Welcome back.
Well, thank you, yeah. And the book, I just finished reading it. I enjoyed it immensely.
Thank you.
Because of all those reasons, I think, because I was, you were class of 61.
Technically, yeah, I was one of those odd term guys, so I actually finished my education there in December of 60, then was technically a postgraduate student until the actual ceremony in 61.
Did you get to go graduate at a ceremony or no?
I think I was invited, but I'm not sure I went because by then I was really out and working, trying to make some money for college. So.
Yeah, yeah. The book, much of the book centers around UFA, and we'll get into some of that in a minute, but one of the things that surprised me is the detail that you had the book, the names that I haven't thought of in years, dates, places. Did you keep a journal in those years?
I did not. A lot of people have mentioned that, and what happened was I spent a good deal of time researching files of newspaper files of the entire decade that gave me some insight to help my memory for both national, local news and names, particularly of like sports figures, both of Utica, from Utica and beyond. And I also not only had my own, but called upon people that I knew were still in the area to look at high school yearbooks. So I studied yearbooks from UFA, Proctor, New Hartford, so it kind of refreshed not only my memory, but my ability to spell names correctly.
Yeah. Well, you know, I remember one name that jumped out at me from Proctor. One of the names, it was I guess it was a baseball game, Pomp Del Monte.
Yes.
He was a great athlete at Proctor.
He was. Pomp was, in fact, it's really fun. I see him once in a while, and we have kind of different memories about some of the sports events. Although Pomp's a couple of years younger than I, but we did play baseball against each other, and we were both pitchers. And I recall one game in the book where we won the city championship, beating Proctor 1-0. Pomp pitched for Proctor, and he actually pitched a better game than I did.
One hitter, didn't he?
He hit a one hitter, and I think maybe I pitched a four hitter,
Yeah.
and we kind of won on an error or something. And I was kidding him the last time, before the book came out, I warned him that the story was going to be in the book. He says, yeah, but we beat you the following week. I said, Pomp, I don't remember that game at all. But I went back and I looked at the newspaper file and I couldn't find it. So
Yeah. What gave you the interest? This is your second or third book?
Second
book.
Yeah.
The first book was on politics.
Pretty much politics and business development, economic development.
You worked for those who might remember, you worked in the administration of Dominic Acero, and then went on to, was it OCIDC or something like that?
Yeah, I went from working for Dick Acero to then working in Rome with Mayor Valentine. Then I ran the Oneida County Industrial Development Corporation, which was kind of the forerunner of what they call the EDGE today. So, yeah.
And you had the first book there. Now you had this one. What gave you the pushed into it?
It's a very kind of long journey of a couple of years. I'd go to reunions, again, because I was a half-term guy. I get to go to the 60 class reunion and 61, and everybody I would bump into at the reunions, whether they had done well in life or not, everybody just kept saying how the happiest days in their life were in Utica when they were growing up as teenagers in Utica. Then I happened to go to a funeral of Dr. Gene Nasser, who was a close friend of mine. And I was talking to a guy that I grew up with after that, and he was saying, gee, you know, somebody ought to down in paper, you know, how we grew up and how the city was then. He said, geez, I've tried to encourage my brother to do it, but he won't do it. So then I started to take the idea seriously. So I then thought about Utica, and when you really think about it, Utica in the 1950s, I think, was one of the most interesting cities in the whole country. You know, we were extremely prosperous with big companies like GE and Bendix. The Utica was the regional center and beyond of law, politics, business, you name it. We had fascinating characters walking around. We were a deeply religious community with powerful priests, like we recently went to the Lord's celebration, and I was talking about how Father Collins at the time was a mover and shaker in Utica. We had influential rabbis and politicians and wonderful parks, shining streets. Everybody who wanted to work had a job. And so we had this shining city on one hand, and then on the other hand, almost like across the street, we had a wide open city of vice, really consisting largely of prostitution and gambling and city corruption at the time. So you had the paradox of, you know, a wonderful city in one hand, and then a city with a darker side on the other, all living together very harmoniously.
The Fisher investigation that came in.
Yeah, at the end, near the end of the decade. But so that was really fascinating to me, that to have that paradox within one city. And as you said, you know, we even had, you could, as I say, know a powerful pastor, and then walk across the street and meet one of the guys who was at the Appalachian Convention in the Mafia days. So.
We'll talk some more about that right after this break. Rodger Potocki is our guest. Short break, right back.